Awesome. And welcome to another episode of How to Make It in Toronto. We're super excited as we have Mr. Howard Freedman here. And I'll give you a bit of an introduction to Mr. Freedman. So, Howard Freedman's professional experiences were the right fit for creating a successful financial aid consulting business. For over 20 years, he continues to make his clients feel confident and successful by helping them pursue the most affordable colleges. His leadership and accomplishments in financial management, customer service, management, and software consulting, process improvements, negotiations, and analytical skills saved organizations millions. It was only natural to reinvent himself into a more satisfying career as a financial aid consultant to give back to society. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Howard Friedman.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here.
I'm super excited about today's conversation. I feel like we're going to learn a lot. And you know what? Let's just jump right in. And my first question is, how do you define success, Howard?
Well, success could be defined a couple of ways. The first way is to define a goal or establish a goal and work towards accomplishing that goal. So it's hard to measure success if you don't have a path to it. And I think it's a very important thing to just not let things happen, but be in control of them. So that's really important. The other definition of success is, and we'll talk about a work environment, that many people will say, myself included, that I did a good job and I really should get a big bonus this year. Mm-hmm. And the manager might say, "That's right, Howard, you did, but you didn't go above and beyond. You met expectations. Mm-hmm. You really didn't go above and beyond what we expected. So you're kind of average in the middle. You did your job, you did it correctly, but we can't really say you're successful unless you go above and beyond." Mm-hmm. So success, to summarize, is what you want it to be. The other piece to it, I'm going to sneak in a third one. Mm-hmm. When I was in payroll management, I received the Man of the Year award. And I was just so overwhelmed and so happy to get this. This is an award that was the top of my profession. Everybody knew me and said, "Oh, great, 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 great." But that happened for just being who I am, by doing good things, by adding value, by being happy, by writing articles, by giving back to the society. So sometimes success could be something that's a big surprise that you didn't plan for, but you achieve it by being who you are.
Yeah, I love that. And that's a phenomenal answer. One of the things I actually took from your website was you have this great quote by Thomas Edison, in which our greatest weakness lies in giving up. The most certain way to success is to always try just one more time. I thought that was awesome. Yep. And very fitting for our conversation today. So could you start by giving us a little bit of a background on how you've got into building your financial aid consultant? Like, how did you get into finance? What was your goals with it, and get into consulting?
Well, we'll go a little far back, and I just want to make it interesting and not cause your listeners to fall asleep with all my accomplishments. But let me just go back to my college days. I was a student at Northeastern University in Boston. The biggest thing that I learned there is going through a rigorous program, but also through a program that they call co-op, which is very popular right now. And that gave me a chance to get out into the real world and learn about different types of businesses, build my successes, build my resume. There were certain things I did that were good and certain things a little embarrassing. I know my very, very first job was working for a company picking skirt orders. Now, basically what that meant is certain stores ordered a particular style in different sizes. So you had to take the order and say, well, I need 3 of size 8s, 4 or 5, 10. So it it kind of, you kind of got into the rhythm and you were running around and you were jumping on these scaffolding things. So one day I did it and my pants ripped, and in a place that I won't talk about, but a place that you need a zipper for.
Mhm.
And I was just so embarrassed because I really couldn't tell anybody that I ripped my zipper. And I asked for safety pins. Nobody had safety pins. So I had to be somewhat creative, and maybe that's where my creativity came from. So I borrowed a newspaper, and I just walked out of the building with the newspaper covering that area. And I was just like, that's been pretty creative, to rip your pants, to be totally embarrassed, but to be creative and put things together. So, that's kind of where it started. I worked there. I worked in a financial firm that I was like assistant accountant, and they used to send me to the airport in the middle of the winter with a fly swatter and to pick up clients. And the clients couldn't believe looking for this guy in the middle of the airport, looking for a man in the middle of December with a fly swatter. So I had to kind of hold it up. And they just thought it was just so funny. He said, "How could they do that to you?" I said, "Well, that's my job." So those are a couple of funny things, but I think you kind of learn to laugh
Yeah.
at those things and help start your foundation. So I went to Northeastern. I had my co-op jobs. I graduated. My first job was working for General Dynamics as an industrial engineer. Now, what does an industrial engineer do? They do time study. They look at efficiency, but they're not very well liked by the people who they're studying.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a very gratifying job, but it was a job to really start a process that I always loved, was efficiency. Did that, was in the military, came back, was out of work, and then got a job in a payroll department to be a supervisor there. And this particular company was a major retailer, which went out of business. Actually, a lot of my jobs, after I leave, the company goes out of business. Can't figure out quite why. Is it something I did, or is it something to do with the business? But they always like close. So anyhow, I worked my way up. I got involved, and this I think is important for your listeners to know, is I really worked my way up. The job was very demanding, very stressful, but I got involved with this organization called the American Payroll Association. And what it gave me were opportunities that I didn't have in the workplace, such as my writing career. I used to write all kinds of articles, serious, funny, whatever. I became a speaker. That's, lost my fear of speaking in front of crowds. Got all kinds of awards, all kinds of plaques, which most are in the trash right now. But I do have my Man of the Year, and that's a good example of success by just really getting involved in doing things. And through the years, I was involved with finance, payroll, and then I became a consultant. And what I loved about that is it gave me an opportunity to be objective, to build customer service skills, to understand what deliverables are, to be diplomatic in terms of, instead of telling somebody, "Oh, you screwed up, it's a really mess," you learn to say, "Well, that's very interesting what you're doing. Let me make a suggestion on what I think might be a better way." So I was, a consultant. I worked for a software company. Again, I got an award for the best consultant. A good example is going above and beyond your responsibilities. So it just kind of happened, getting these awards. And then I worked in the Boston public school systems for a year, helping a lot of different students from different backgrounds. And then eventually I got out of the workforce traditionally, and I was asked if I'd like to fill out financial aid forms. Um, because this particular person had an overload that he couldn't handle. So I said yes. I learned how to fill out the forms. But one thing that really bothered me is he wanted me to fill out the forms, but he also wanted me to recommend uh, people to his services, which were financial, which in fact involved, buying annuities and different things that I didn't think were very fitting for people that I know. So I gradually weaned myself off from from him, and I said, there's more to this business than filling out forms.
Mhm.
That doesn't add any value. So over time, I said, I want to give people more for their money. I want to explain things to them. I want to take all these skills that I learned, because all these jobs I had were customer service related, giving employees, companies, all these benefits, and using my skills to do that. And one thing that was ingrained in me was one company I worked for, they had us attend a seminar by a person by the name of W. Edward Stemming. And he was the father, the guru of quality control. He helped Japan after World War II. And what he taught us is process improvements, how to make things better,
Mhm.
how to know if it was a special cause, like a bad employee, or a common cause. So we kind of always looked at, is there a better way of doing it? What is a better way of doing it? How can we simplify the process? What do we need to do? And I kind of took those skills with me in terms of becoming a financial aid consultant. How can we do this better? How can we help a family that doesn't have much for college? What path should they take? How should they manage their money? How should they decide on what school? How should they plan for their future? How should they feel better? So you take the customer service, the analytical, the technical, the auditing skills, and you put them all together, you mix them all up, throw some sugar in it,
Yeah.
and there you just made a financial aid consultant.
God, that's awesome. And you have so much experience, and going from the different types of roles that you have. What do you think is one skill that helped you be fluid in all those different roles, and how? And I know you've combined it into helping you provide a better service for people. What do you think is a skill that, again, do you think helped you be successful in those roles and has helped you become a better entrepreneur?
I think the biggest skill of thinking about what kind of value you can provide
Mm,
your customer, your client, um, because I learned it's not about me.
mm,
It just isn't about me. It's about, what do people want, and how can I help them? What kind of value? And I think you have to be a good listener. And I think you just have to say, uh, how can I help you? When somebody calls me, they'll say, well, I got your name from so and so,
mm,
and I need help filling out the forms. And I'll stop and I'll say, well, I can help you with that, but what I want to help you with is finding ways to afford college.
mm,
But you have to listen to what they want. You can't impose your values on them and say, this is what I'll do for you. Da, 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 do.
mm,
And I think the human relations, the customer service, those types of skills, um, are very, very powerful. And having clients spend money on what they really want and need, not what I tell them they should need, and not pile on a bunch of extra services and things that they don't need to pay for.
mhm. And My next question would be, and it's based on the listening, because I feel like we live in this time of instant gratification, and where people always just want to have an answer or get through things quickly. What are some tips you can give the audience in regards to how to really listen well, and even maybe the sort of questions you want to ask to really understand, the foundation of a problem?
I think the first good thing listening is just listen without interrupting.
Mm.
I think that's really important. And usually when people speak, if you let them speak long enough, they'll, I won't say spill their guts out, but
Yeah.
certain truths come out. Sometimes people are apprehensive about telling you everything. But if you just let them talk and understand what they're asking for, I think getting back to your question, and you just asked me again what the second part of it was because I was rambling on.
Yeah, what are some tips for learning how to listen, and then asking what are some good questions that can open someone up to giving you more information?
Okay, well, to continue that,
Mhm.
repetition is very important.
Mhm.
So if you said something to me, I would say, okay, let me just repeat what you said because I want to make sure I have this down correctly. So when you get the facts, and I usually write them all down, I will ask other questions. Like, for example, um, you said you earn 200,000 a year. Can you tell me, is this consistent with what you've been earning last year and the following year?
Mhm.
Or was this a windfall? And the answer might be, well, I won the lottery
Mhm.
and I normally make $85,000 a year, but I won the lottery. So that's a question to say this is not a normal situation.
Mhm.
And you have them explain. Or a situation, you look at somebody's tax return and you say, gee, this is interesting that this happened. But you may ask them a question about their personal life to a degree to know what is their marital status.
Mhm.
They single, divorced. Um, where is their money invested? You
Mhm.
know, how liquid are you? What do you have a plan for your future, including retirement
Mhm.
and money for college? Um, have you sat down as a family and talked about these things? Have you kind of laid out uh, what college you're uh, interested in and how much parents or whoever can afford?
Mhm.
Have you thought about if you want to select a college, how much debt are you willing to incur? So each question raises another question, but you can't just take the information, throw it on a form and say, okay, here, pay me so much,
Yeah.
without, again, the analytical approach. Then what does this mean? And then when you look at a form and you look at it and say, well, it looks to me that you earn too much money. But let's talk about what you can do.
Mhm.
It doesn't all have to be in financial aid. It could be investing. It could be, let's talk about the creative things we can do.
Mhm.
And that's kind of where you get people engaged in discussion. You don't want to, and I feel very comfortable with talking to people. If I ask them a question and they give me a closed-ended answer,
Mhm.
you know, do you need help with your financial aid? Yep. Did you like the campus tour? Yeah, it was good. Well, what about it?
Mhm.
The kids were nice. The trees were nice. The gym was nice. Well, what about the school? Oh, I didn't really check that out. I just were interested in the kids and I like the party.
Yeah.
So you gotta kind of ask the questions. You have to have a little bit of humor to it also.
Yeah, I think that's extremely important, and it's a great approach to making people feel more comfortable when you're having those discussions with them, right? So, what are some lessons that you've learned from working in financial, aid consulting about managing finances?
There's so much that I've been exposed to. As I said before, process improvements, um, where they come in, and especially, and I'm not getting political, but you have to look at uh, simplification. How can you make things simple and reduce costs through process improvements? Very important. Um, Secondly, I learned that you have to be clear as to what you want and how much you can spend. You really don't want people to tell you how much you can spend. You don't want to go into the store and say, look, I'm looking for this TV that was on sale. It's $399. And the salesman says, yeah, but that's a standard model.
Mm-hmm.
For $200 more, you can get one that'll massage your back, cook your dinner, um, make you feel really comfortable. And out for another 300, you can get the deluxe model that walks on air. And then you walk out and say, what in the heck did I do? I only came in for the TV on sale, and now they're talking me into something I really don't want.
Mm-hmm.
I learned about uh, planning for the future. I think that's very important. I think, when I've done budgeting and I've invested in things that the mindset that many people fall into is I'm going to buy it now and pay for it later. And one of the things that I've learned is from a business standpoint is negotiate the best price. And by doing that, it's not hard. You just say, look, I like your products and services, but it's much more than we want to spend. What can you do for me? So there's nothing wrong with answering questions or asking for more. I've been in the military, and in the States, anytime I go somewhere, I'll say, I've been in the military, can I have a military discount?
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time they say yes, sometimes they say no, but I ask the question. Look for not only cost of an item, but the value and the quality of it.
Mm.
The item that's the lowest cost isn't necessarily the best, but the best one isn't necessarily worth paying extra for. So I think you really have to look at the quality and the standards you're looking for, not just costs. I think, the other thing that, I think is important is to ask to look for better ways of doing something. Do we really need this?
Mm-hmm.
It's nice to have. One thing in selecting systems and talking to people, we'd always ask the question, we'd always have a plan and say, this is what we're looking for. This is the plan. And you have to look at it. And then once you start adding extras, they call that scope creep. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
It means that it gets out of line. It gets so prohibitively expensive that you really have to go back to the drawing board and get your act together and say, well, we'll take A, but because that's absolutely necessary. It's absolutely necessary.
Mm-hmm.
But B is a little bit more frivolous. A good example might be designing a software program and putting all these bells and whistles in it. And you may not need all the bells and whistles. It'll be nice to have.
Mm-hmm.
But the main thing is you want to have a program that would work for you. So those are just some of the things that I think, you learn to look for quality, value, to ask if you can get a discount, look at ways of reducing cost and redundancy, and, getting good people, getting a good team that knows more than you do, because that will only complement what you do know. Your job is to lead them to come up with good ideas and to function very positively.
Yeah, that's brilliant. That's a great answer. I think that's some great advice to take in that can be applied in a lot of different ways. So what are some of the biggest obstacles you help the clients that you work with overcome?
Well, in the financial aid profession, and I put in my book, Making College Happen, I've added like 6 or 7 horror stories
Mm,
that uh, that to me help people to understand. I'll give you a couple. I'll give you one from financial aid and one from industry, so you'll understand.
mhm,
I had a client that came to me, and he wanted to do the financial aid forms. And again, I said, well, I'd like to see your tax return. I'd like to see your tax statement and then your tax return. So I looked at his statement, and it said at the time you earn 70,000 a year. So I said, well, based on everything, it seems to me that you'll qualify for some financial aid. So, oh, that's really good. So I said, well, now let me see your tax return. And the tax return, he had this inordinate amount of interest on it. So I said, oh, that's interesting. Where'd you get your interest? Well, here's the story. My mother was going into an assisted living home, and she had 500,000 that she did not want to give to the home.
mm,
So she gave it to me for safekeeping, and I put it into my account under my tax ID number. And the assisted living home would know, and then eventually I'll probably get the money. So I said, what you did is you added all that money in assets that inflated your income and will not make you eligible for aid. He said, but that's my mother's money. I said, yeah, it may be, but you took it out, you put it in your name, so it's your money.
mhm,
So that's a good example where you may have a situation that may make sense to help his mother, but it
mm,
didn't make good sense in terms of financial aid.
mm,
The other story was when I managed payroll, and uh, we used to pay our employees weekly. And during the holiday season, we paid like 100,000 checks weekly.
mm,
And I had an assistant who was very good. And, before you ran the payroll, you had to put in back then a control card with the beginning and the ending dates,
mm.
with fields to clear, etc. And I used to come in like early in the morning, look at all the stacks of checks, check them out, make sure everything's okay. So I came in one morning, good mood, and I looked at the checks, and this was 1 week before the last week of the year. And all the year-to-date earnings were wiped out.
Oh, wow.
It was like nothing. So I don't know. At one point, I had a silent heart attack. I think that was the time I must have gotten it. So,
Yeah.
oh my God, my heart was thumping. Oh my God, all these checks. We have 100,000 checks, and then we used to keep checks in inventory.
Mm,
So I said, oh my God. And the person that did it was in tears. It was awful. We had a lot of stores that were depending on the checks. And I think what made it work is we all worked as a team
mm,
to say, well, what do we need to do to recreate this payroll, to bring back the 51 weeks of earnings and information? Because the check went back and started taking out taxes because it went back to zero.
wow.
Taxes. So, and we had to get the trucks coming in from another state to bring the checks, and we had to run them. But it all turned out that we didn't point fingers,
Mm,
but we also learned from it that we needed to change our control and approval procedures.
mm,
That once a person did it, there should be a second signature and review, and then we should run test checks. So it's a good example where checks and balances need to come
mm,
in terms of financial and internal control. So, and that's like what I do too. That's why I ask questions, and I like to get opinions from others. If somebody asks me a question, I don't know the answer, I'll go to somebody and say, have you ever had this situation before, and what would you recommend?
Mm,
That's what I do.
yeah, that's awesome. I mean, that sounds like a tough situation when you're in
Yeah,
there,
it was.
and that's definitely learning from experience in that case, right?
Mhm.
That's a lot to build up. So I wanted to ask you this, particularly based on the economic, time that we're in right now, obviously. And I'm in Canada, you're over in the U.S., and we've got the tariff situations that's
Uh,
happening. I feel like after COVID, the economy's been a very frivolous place for quite some time. Are there any tips you can give in regards to how to build strong financial habits that can help you in today's market?
I think that's an excellent question. I actually started writing an article just about that.
Mm,
I think there's certain things, and they always say when you talk to a financial advisor, you got to ride the wave. Don't do anything hasty. Don't get rid of your stocks. I think as part of that, and relating that to college and financial aid, you have to kind of set the bar. If you're going to the gym and you're lifting this heavy weight,
mm,
you either can go way, way up,
mm,
okay, or you could bring it down and say, what can I manage?
mm,
If I go way up here, I'll probably fall, kill myself. If I bring it down here. So I think the first thing is look at manageability. I tell families to um, set an amount of money, especially for college, that you feel comfortable affording. I think that's very, very important. I think also with planning for college, the earlier you plan, the better. The earlier, the better.
mm,
Um, and there's nothing wrong when a student is a freshman in high school to start saving something, something. It can be $10 a week, or whatever. But always put something away. And for students who work during the summer or whatever, um, put some of their money away, because every dollar you have is less than what you need to borrow, and it's going to cost less.
mm,
I think align yourself with companies, if you can, that will pay for tuition or
mm,
tuition assistance and help learn a skill. I think that is extremely important. I think it's important to, starting at a younger age, looking ahead and saying, what kind of career do I want? What kind of courses do I need to take? How can I create value? How can I create this value that colleges want me, and I'll get scholarships and whatever? I think it's important to look at careers and career fields and see how much money they pay. And
mm.
in fact, if you had to borrow money, is your return on investment going to be good?
Yeah.
So if you're deciding, for example, you want to go to a college, a school, or whatever, then I think it's important to um, do your homework and really know it.
Mhm,
I think it's also important in more frugal times to look at options that may not be as expensive. And a couple of examples would be going back to the four-year college. You don't have to spend $100,000 a year for somebody who wants to be a teacher.
mhm,
It just isn't worth it.
mhm,
Despite the fact that a student may say, well, I like the sunny climate, I like to play golf, I want to go to school with uh,
mhm.
the people are, fun people.
Yeah.
That's not going to buy you a job or career. So you have to kind of look at it and say, well, that type of a job, maybe a state college or a
Mhm,
provincial college will will make it.
mhm,
Um, I think also that many people fail to realize there's so many different ways of economizing. One, is community college. And I know in Canada, the rules are a little bit different,
Mm.
but if you went to community college, it wouldn't really cost that much.
Mm.
You could earn your credits, and then decide to transfer. Other things would be to take online programs that you could take online at your leisure and then work and save money. Other things would be part-time, part-time work, and maybe have an employer that will pay for financial uh, assistance. I can't say about the Canadian military, but I know in the US, if you go into the military, make a commitment, they'll pay for your tuition when you get out. So again, um, the other thing, I think, shop around. There's a lot of publications, a lot of things online that you can do all kinds of searches and manipulations
Mm.
in terms of the cheapest colleges, the most affordable, the ones that are give you the best bang for the buck. So again, using the example about buying a TV and upgrading, you may get a great education by just doing your research, and then you really want to look at when you do your research, how much financial aid do they give out?
Mm.
How many scholarships do they give out? What do you need to do to prepare for a scholarship? Like I say, prepare early. What kind of skills you develop? So you're going to college on somebody else's money. It's hard, I think, when in today's economy and things that are happening, to put college above everything, because there are needs. There's needs for everyday living. There's needs for um, uh, other expenses. So you have to kind of put that in the mix of maybe talking to a financial advisor and say, look, this is what we have.
Mm.
The other thing I'll end with is that you parents shouldn't assume that all their children want to go to college. They should let them express how they feel, but also getting into a trade is very honorable, very honorable. A lot of people in the trade make more than people going to college, and you can be an apprentice, you can earn money. So those things, and probably many more, are ways, are good ways to look at conserving, managing money, and not getting in over your head, especially during a period of financial fluctuations.
Mhm. I love that. And preparation is key to success, right? So I think
Yes.
those are a lot of great tips. So I want to talk about, or tell us about, making college happen. This is your book, and what's your goal with the book, and what do you think, or what do you want readers to take away from this book?
Well, I'd like to sell 1 million copies today. If people bought 1 million copies, I'd be really a happy camper. I really would. Uh, this is the third edition of my book, and the intent of it is to help families go through this journey we call finding colleges and finding a career. It's not a book on how to fill out forms. So I tried to, in a very simple way, very humorous, very sincere way, try to help families go through the decision process. And I started off talking about attitude. And I've taken the acronyms YES and NO as follows. I said YES stands for you expect success. That's what I made up. And NO meaning new opportunities. So the first thing that I tell people is to be optimistic and hopeful, despite all the negativity you hear. Oh, college is too expensive. I can't afford it. We got other things, whatever. Yes, in the U.S., there's over 5,000 colleges and opportunities.
Yeah.
So I think what I started out with is being positive. The second thing, not necessarily in this order, is the communications. sometimes it's hard for family members to communicate without being too emotional.
Mm.
I mean, crying helps. Crying helps a lot. Guilt, guilt, that really helps a lot.
Yeah.
You know, peer pressure. Oh, that really helps a lot. No, because people leave this community and everybody feels lousy.
Mm.
Like, why do we even talk? You know, my parents won't do this. The
Mm.
child's not going to move off budget. This really stinks. So I think you really, it's good to have kind of a shopping list of things you need to talk about. I think the first thing is for a student to do their diligence in terms of things I've mentioned.
Mm.
You know, I give a lot of websites in there, a lot of places to search.
Mm.
I include questions that parents should ask their student and the student should ask their parent. I talk about in great length how to look at careers and what the resources are, how to go on a campus visit and all the questions that should be asked. I talk about teamwork. You know, going to college isn't just Howard Freedman as the best financial consultant in the world.
Yeah.
It involves other people, it involves accountants, financial administrators, networking with other people, high school guidance counselors, because every decision you make, whether it's financial or whatever, will impact your need for financial aid. So it's very important, and to have a cadre of people that will help you with these decisions.
Mm.
Good example would be uh, another horror story would be a family member died and the survivor got an annuity,
Mm.
which did not have to appear in anybody's tax return. Then they went out and they cashed it in on their name. Same situation and created
Yeah.
the asset. So I think that's where accountants, financial advisors, they help you look at the much bigger picture. So I kind of look at the uh, big picture.
Mm.
I talk about um, campus visits and having a checklist. What parents should ask, what students should ask. A student might ask, questions about some courses, but parents may have financial questions or safety questions, or questions about scholarships and things.
Mm.
So I talk about who should be responsible for what and how do you evaluate the colleges.
Mm.
I go through uh, looking at scholarships. I don't just give a bunch of scholarship sites. I creatively have listed different sources to look at. Example might be your parents might work for the police department.
Mm.
They offer a scholarship for, or your parents might be in the military, or you belong to a certain organization, or certain ethnicity, a certain
Mm.
skill. So we talk about that, but I'm not saying to people, and I won't say to any client, look, I'll guarantee you get a huge scholarship.
Mhm.
Got to really look at the big ones that they advertise. Your chances of winning are very small. So you have to kind of be really creative, and I help them with their creativity,
Mm.
really understanding, all the sources and things you should ask. And, as part of that, as I went back to the freshman year, you're always packaging yourself. You always want to package yourself to say, I want to have leadership skills. I want to get good grades. I want to take advanced courses. I want to, show leadership skills. I want to do all these great things. So as you package yourself,
Mm.
and you become much more attractive to scholarship providers.
Mm.
Then go into once you're accepted and how you evaluate all the schools, how to evaluate the financial aid award, really how to analyze it. Good example might be and I've included this in the book. Let's say a school costs $70,000. That seems to be my favorite number. And the student comes home and says, Mom, Dad, I got accepted to XYZ University, and they gave me a $30,000 scholarship. Wow, that's really where I want to go. I want to go to that school. Well, if you look at the award's 70,000. They got 30. Who's going to pay the other 40,000 over 4 years? So you really have to analyze to look at how much the loans, how much is work study, how much is scholarship. Then you have to determine, which I help people with, going through an appeal process. How can you appeal your case? What do you need? And I help write appeal letters to really say, we need more. We need more. And if it gets to that point, honestly, in getting back to society and the financial pressures, that you just can't cut it, then son or daughter, we may have to start off at community college and then transfer. That's the best we can do for you. It's not personal. It's just economic. So we go through that. I go through loans, different types of loans, different loan forgiveness. And then I talk about employment, which is quite unusual for my book. Now, after you go through all of this, you go through all these decisions, all these situations where you have a career. I talk about going to the career placement office, and it's a little bit unusual because that's where graduates go, but I think it's good to find out where the graduates get placed and where they go, where all the money is before you start freshman year, to say, hey, and with AI and everything, things are changing. They're changing. So what kind of program do you want to put together? What do you want to learn? What are the skills that are going to make you marketable? It's not important, and I've learned this too, that kind of a good analogy, a good situation. They teach you what they call the elevator speech. It kind of goes something like this. And I explain that in Searching for Employment. There's this fictitious elevator, and there are two people in there. One is an executive, the other person is a college grad. And the executive asks the student, oh, what are you here for? And, well, I'm looking for a job. And then they go on to say, well, I was in XYZ fraternity, I was in the cheerleading team. I got an A in this, and I was a champion baton twirler, and you go on and on and on. I did this, I did that, I did the other thing. I got this award, and the executive's listening. So they get to the top floor, and she said, well, should I give you my resume? So he takes it, gets off, and he throws in a waste paper basket. So what is wrong with the story? It's very simple. This person talked about themselves, but they failed to indicate what kind of value that they provided. It's I. So you have to kind of look at it with all these things we've been talking about, the skills, the college, the education, the value, the perspective, to say, what can I offer you? What skills, what are your needs, and how can I fulfill them? And then you have to be prepared to say that when you work for somebody, it's under their rules and directorship. And what you learned in school is helpful, but it may not benefit a company. And I think that's where value comes in. How can we sell ourselves? It's a selling job. Colleges, from the beginning, it's like a business. We talked about the TV, but college has recruiters. They go out and they use a term called enrollment management. So that's saying, I want somebody, a female or whatever, is an engineering student. And if we get that student, we're going to give them a good scholarship. So we're going to scout for that. So certain people are recruited. They're lucky to be recruited. Then the student needs to look and say they have to sell themselves to schools that don't know them, sell themselves in terms of their skills. And all those skills and everything we talk about has to do with your ability to think, your creativity, your teamwork, your problem solving ability, attitude, all those things. That's what they're looking for, because employers want to mold people to fit into their culture, but also to be problem solvers and generate money. That's what they're looking for, regardless of what college you've gone to. That's the key.
Man, I feel like this book is a huge resource for anyone that is looking for advice like this. And there's so many tidbits that you've shared. So clearly, there's a lot of value there, and I encourage listeners to definitely take a look at this, because you've given so much important information, and especially not just looking at colleges, but sources for that can help you in your process. But then also what to look for after college as well. So I think this is a great read for anyone to pick up.
Yeah.
And could you tell us where can we find more information on the book, on you? What are great places that the community can reach out or learn more about you, Howard?
Sure, I'd be very happy to. The name of the book is called Making College Happen. It has a green cover. It's available on Amazon.com.
Okay.
My website is www.financialaidconsulting. The website is not commonly a type of website you would see, because it includes many of my articles. I have other podcasts, sources of the podcasts, published articles, ways to learn. So that's www.financialaidconsulting. My email is finaidguy, FINAIDGUI, finaidguy@gmail.com. I welcome, and I just really want to say this, is that I'm very fair with people. I'm not out to really make a bundle of money. I do this because I have a purpose of helping our next generation. That's what it's about. It's not about the money. It really isn't. I'd like people to buy the book. I'd like people to become clients. But the greatest satisfaction to me is helping others. And I get a lot of calls from former clients and thank you, Nazwa, thank you. Thanks for your advice and all that. And it makes me feel so good. And that's what drives me. And all the information that I tried to share, I hope will be beneficial to your listeners to understand that I didn't sugarcoat anything. I told you the truth. It's so important. Being young, you have great opportunities to build yourself for the future. And I think take those opportunities and be honest with yourself. If you feel you're not college material, don't be afraid to say I'm not college material, but do something that you would have a passion and a purpose for that makes you happy. You don't have to make other people happy, but you want to be happy, because that makes life so much easier to be happy and to wear a smile than going around saying, woe is me. How are you today? Oh, today really stinks. It's not sunny. Oh, I can't get the car tonight. Or, I was hoping to get this and that and I didn't get it. No, so what? You wake up in the morning, you're here, you're happy, you smile. There's a lot to be happy about. And every day what I do is I have my big 10. I go out and I try to do 10 good deeds for people. Now, they may not be big ones. They may be opening the door for somebody, or helping them get groceries, or moving the shopping carts, or smiling and making them laugh. Because laughter is the best medicine.
Yeah.
If you beat yourself up over any of this stuff, Don't beat yourself up. Laugh at it and then say to yourself, what did I learn from this? And when I have a problem with a company or whatever, I won't call necessary to complain unless somebody's rude to me. But I'll just say, I had this problem. What did you learn from it? What can you do when the next person calls? How can you answer this question? And I think it's okay to make mistakes, but along with the mistakes, you have to say, what did I learn from these? And how can I be a better, stronger person? That's what it's about.
Uh, this has been fantastic, and so much great information you've shared. I'll make sure that we put all your information up on with the episode, as well as making sure people know where to find it on Amazon, your website, email as well. My final question for you, Howard, would be, in your career, and you've obviously helped so many people. You've written a book. You've been in the Army as well. I mean, you're a great speaker and storyteller, but I would want to ask is, what are you most proud of?
Can I answer? Can I give you two or
Yeah,
just one? I don't know how much. I know this is such an extravagant production. I don't know if I'm limited to one or two. I think there's two things that I would say. One was getting the Man of the Year award from the American Payroll Association. And it just showed me that I could be recognized for who I am. I would say the Man of the Year award was something that I did not expect. I think it was great. It was kind of the culmination of everything that I did. I think the other thing that I look at, and from childhood on, is building my self-esteem. I think it's something when you start off young. I was shy, I was fat, I was a little awkward, not too athletic or anything. Good student, worked at it, but I think it took me time to feel confident, to really believe in myself. There's a song on how to succeed in business without trying, and he looks in the mirror and he said, I believe in me. I believe in me. And I think that, and another song that I like from Wicked is Defying Gravity, because it just said that nothing should hold you down. You got to believe in yourself. You have to be strong enough to repel any negativity and stand up for what you believe in, as long as you don't hurt anybody. So it took me a lot of years to realize that I've had a pretty good life. I really have. I'm very thankful for my supreme being every day. I'm happy for all the good people I meet, like you. I'm happy for my family. I'm happy for all the people that have an opportunity to help. And that has given me great confidence, both as a public speaker, writer, and just trying to be a good person. I think that's something per se you wouldn't say, well, that's an accomplishment. I think it's a developmental thing that if you get to a point in your life and you really believe in yourself, you can defy gravity. You can make your own decisions. You can make people happy. You can be there for them. That's the way I want to live the rest of my life. And I'm proud of that because it took a lot of sweat and tears to do it. But I feel right now very self-assured. And I think all your listeners should feel that way. If I left you with a final message, believe in yourself, set goals, be happy. Don't worry about what people think. What matters is who you are and what you can give to the world.
Mhm.
And that's the greatest gift. It's the greatest gift. So I hope what I've shared with you today will be helpful to your listeners. I hope at some point I could hear from them, or they
Mhm.
look at my book, which again just isn't for students, with the whole family.
Mhm.
And I hope maybe sometime in the future I can return and talk to you. I'll leave that up to you. But
Mhm.
thank you. This is just a wonderful opportunity. You're a great host. And I'm so happy I was able to talk to you today.
Howard, thank you so much. It's been great to have you. Your advice, everything you've shared with us today has been so powerful and important, and I've definitely learned a lot. I'm really excited to share this with my audience, and I would definitely love to have you on again in the future, so we can touch base again and see how else we can continue to hopefully inspire people and teach people and help people, and provide our value to the world as best we can. So thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today.
It's my pleasure, and God bless you. Thank you.
Bless you, Howard. Take care. Thank you.
Okay, you too. Bye,
Bye.
Carl.
Bye.